Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel Anonymous UPSC Trailblazer. Let's begin reading the Hindu newspaper. So the front page says April cross GST taking power past 2.1 lakh crore. So GST we know that is an indirect tax, and for April it comes out to be 2.1 lakh crore. So it's quite huge. You can see from this graph that it's of different months available. For April it is like the highest that has crossed 2 lakh crore. So I think more than that nothing, the figures will be mentioned. So I think it's so March 2023 May it was the highest. Before that we can see it was about to touch 2 crores. Same month last year. So mostly during April it is the highest. Here also during April it was the highest. So I think इसमें इतना ही होगा, but let's read this line. Record tax collection were due to strong momentum in the economy, says Finance Minister. April GST revenue are usually the highest as taxpayer meet compliance deadlines in March. So record tax collection were due to strong momentum in the economy. So we know that a financial year starts from April to March, and the March return is filed in April. So that's why it's year ending. People are more like year ending ये file करना है. So they are more like active in filing this return. So students of 138 schools evacuated after bomb scares. Students were evacuated 131 schools in Delhi, 7 in Noida after email threatening to blow them up sent security agencies into dizzy and panic. Prajwal seeks 7 days to appear before SIT. So SC rejects plea for allocating spectrum without auction. So the Supreme Court has this spectrum is related with network. So the center has made an application to the Supreme Court to allow administrative allocation of spectrum. So here it is written, administrative allocation will put the center sole in charge of selecting operators to distribute airwaves. So the center wants to take control of this spectrum. So Supreme Court has declined. Okay, so spectrum is a scarce natural resource and allocated to private players. The process is more open and transparent. the government said that it is use of the spectrum is not only for telecom services, commercial telecom services, but it is also for but it is also in public interest, like security, disaster, safety. I'll search the meaning of sui generis. Sui generis means a person or thing that is unique in class by itself. थिंक इसके बारे में बता रहा है. ओके, सो रिफ्यूज़ कर दिया, ठीक है. Villages depend on their shrinking river in Balangir district of western Orissa for the domestic use. With many rivers going dry this summer, people are facing water scarcity. Dried up rivers, Orissa. We read this about Columbia University yesterday. Okay, so we have read the front page, then we'll move on to the editorial section. We'll read this first. Sea also rises. India must collaborate with Indian Ocean countries for data on warming. Munificent means what? Generous. So currently the Indian Ocean heat level is 1.2 degrees Celsius, and it is likely to heat between 1.7 to 3.8 degrees Celsius from 2020 to 2100. Marine heat waves, we have heard this concept, like heat waves on the land we have heard, which we call Lu. So now marine heat waves. This will cause rapid formation of cyclones. This also we have done. This will accelerate coral bleaching and harm the fisheries sector. So So it will, I've also explained this before, it will not only heat the like top surface but also like the entire ocean. Monsoon will become more erratic, uneven, followed by intense rain, concomitant flooding. So, like erratic climatic change will be observed. So, it is saying that India should collaborate with other Indian countries for data on should sorry India must collaborate with other Indian Ocean countries, like surrounding countries. India should collaborate with them so as to collect more data and how we can overcome this heating up of the ocean. So the services story. India's intangible exports growth faces risk that warrant a nuanced response. So what it is about something intangible exports. Intangible exports growth faces risks that warrant a nuanced response. क्या है देखते हैं. A deep dive research report from global investment banking major Goldman Sachs so the service sector has definitely prospered in our country. So after 1991, the new economic policy has facilitated the growth in the services sector. So it's telling about the India's share in the services. So see, reading newspaper should be just to have the idea. अच्छा ये हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, because you don't know which what will you quote in the exam. So that quoting part, like which line should be quoted, that has to be done from the monthly compilation, right? Or here I find a line which is very very good, only that line has to be quoted, but from each article, like what has to be learned, that has to be done from the monthly compilations. Okay, but some line I've found or some word I found So that I'll write, that I can use, but from each article that has to be done from the monthly compilations. So it's telling about uh, the growth in the services exports. Now, the wrong way to fight inequality. French economist Thomas Piketty, along with a few other economists, recently came out with some startling findings on economic inequality trends in India over the last century. Inequality in India today is far worse than during the interwar British colonial rule. Top 1% Indian population owned 40% of total wealth, earned 22.6% of total income, while the bottom 50% owned 6.4 total wealth, 15% total income. The fate of the bottom 50% looks even worse when compared with the top 10% who owned 65% of the total health. So the bottom line is worst hit. The author used the findings to argue India's tax system, which is mostly based on people's incomes, is regressive and call for a wealth tax on rich. While Piketty's data might look alarming, it is crucial to question its use to justify wealth redistribution. The economic pie has grown. Economic pie means, I think, what is meant by economic pie? A dividend pie represents GDP and other similar concepts, material economy. So I think the income, GDP. To understand why it is important to study two important trends. First, income and wealth inequality. We have income and wealth inequality. Second, the trend in the income shares of the different groups. So what do these trends tell us? Okay, here it is saying that the 50% share which we have just talked about, that 50% of the population, they have very less, they contribute like very less income to the total GDP, that is they earn very less. So but that does not mean that their real incomes or their standard of living are very poor. It is talking about that from 1991 to 2022 their income has increased fourfold, but their contribution to the GDP decreased, right? But definitely it will increase a little because the inflation has so much increased. Today we don't value 50 rupees, 100 rupees as compared to like 1991, you can say. So I think this is not like relevant because inflation has increased, the entire economic situation of the country, of the world has changed. This is not like Greater economic freedom for India's poor, not higher rate of taxes. So it's saying that if we like impose tax on, like, so much tax on people who earn a lot, so that will restrict people going into that profession. For example, like neurosurgeons, they earn a lot. So when they earn a lot, and if they are imposed higher rate of tax, then people going into this neurosurgeon field will decline. Wealth inequality is inevitable impact of a wealth tax. So so it is saying that the last paragraph is only important, which says that like taxing the rich will not be a solution. Taxing rich the more will not be a solution. What is the solution is that economic freedom is given to the poor. Like facilities are provided to the poor. Developing ways of making them employed, giving them access to information, education, that will help them to prosper. Not like taxing the rich and redistributing it to the poor will only make the rich not um, undertake those profession where tax paying is so much. Here neurosurgeon example was given. Also, like if I know that if suppose I am having a production unit, and I know that if I produce more than 5,000 units of a particular good, I'll be taxed at a higher rate. Why will I go about producing more than 5,000? I'll produce 4,999. I'll restrict myself to that. Why would I pay a higher tax all the time? So that will restrict the production in the country as well. So like taxing the rich is not like a right way. You should provide economic freedom to the poor so that they compete in the marketplace for a bigger share in the economic pie. Next is an animal protection bill that must be moved in June. ahimsa, I think they want to say, which is non-violence. So it's talking about making the um, penalty or the punishment for cruelty towards animals more stricter. We have it is a bailable offense, I think, and weak fines are imposed. Okay, so these are not important, these don't seem to be important. Now comes the opinion section. The trouble with the Supreme Court's EVM verdict: software intended for public use in a democracy needs to be open source, so it's always reliable and doesn't demand trust in single vendor. Source code should not be disclosed, it will be misused. Like the program, EV program should be trustworthy. This is what it is telling. Conserving tapestry of heritage despite initiatives, urbanization poses challenges to heritage preservation in Tamil Nadu. Like a commission should be set up for safeguarding the infrastructure in Tamil Nadu, infrastructure and heritage in Tamil Nadu. Implementation is the issue. So there should be technical and financial support provided and experts provided, and implementation should be checked. Just forming the committee won't help. It should be ensured that it functions properly in whatever it needs, financial needs, support needs, all of them are fulfilled. So budgets and bill passed with little deliberations. Madhya Pradesh passed 85% of its budget without discussion in 2023, followed by Kerala and Jharkhand. The data for the charts, okay. The chart shows the proportion of the budget passed without discussion in 10 states. So 85% of the budget, like budget मतलब इतना यहाँ allocate करेंगे एक्सपेंडिचर, इतना इस सेक्टर में, इतना इस सेक्टर में, वो बिना डिस्कस करे ही पास हो गया. सो सबसे ज़्यादा मध्य प्रदेश में है. और मध्य प्रदेश में सबसे ज़्यादा है. Number of sittings and reports. Time taken to pass the bill. Passed within a day. So it's like, okay, in some states it's passed within many days, and passed within a day, yeah, that is also there. Okay. Hitch with Sri Lanka over territorial sea limits. Definition of territorial sea limit. India and Sri Lanka in the Paul Straits is holding up the settlement of Kachativu issue. It is agreed. India wants. So this is quite technical. Who is an Indian? We move on to the science and tech. Yeah. Particles called quarks hold the key to the final fate of some stars. Plastic treaty talks conclude in Ottawa with a little progress. So, in neutron stars, the strength with which the core collapses fuses protons and neutrons into neutrons. Neutron stars are extremely dense, creating immense pressure that could be forcing the neutrons into a new state of matter. An old open problem asks whether this state could be quark matter. So, this is, I think, very science driven. We know that all matter is composed of atoms, and atoms are made up of protons and neutrons inside the nucleus and neutrons outside. But unlike electrons, protons and neutrons are composite particles because they are further made up of quarks. Quarks can't exist in isolation, they can only be found in groups of two or three, if not more. Such clumps of quarks called hadrons, protons, and neutrons are common examples. Physicists have mostly studied quarks based on the behavior of hadrons and are also interested in how quarks clump together. This is very scientific, no need. We demand strong global plastic treaty. A public art installation outside US conference in Ottawa, Ontario. Plastic treaty talks conclude. I think I'm pronouncing this word wrong. Wait.
Ottawa. Ottawa. Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Ottawa.
Ottawa. And one more this word. Ontario. Ottawa. Ottawa.
Ontario. Ontario.
Ontario. The close connection between plastic and the oil economies of prominent countries constitute the biggest roadblock to its elimination. Activist and environmentalist groups have termed the global plastic treaty negotiations that concluded in Ottawa, Canada, as disappointing. Nearly 192 member countries deliberated for nearly a week to iron out a legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution. To not only eliminate plastic use, we will not use plastic, but also to halt the production. However, the close connection between plastic and the oil economies of prominent countries, the what manufacturing businesses that revolve around making and supplying different grades of plastic, the near ubiquity of the polymers used in the variety of applications, and the paucity of affordable equivalent alternatives constitute the biggest roadblock for its elimination. Because the oil economies, they have many businesses which make use of the plastic. Until date, they have not been able to find out a affordable and equivalent alternative to plastic. So that is the biggest roadblock to elimination. They won't be wanting to not use plastic because of that. Because plastic do not degrade organically, they pollute marine and terrestrial ecosystem and have been long characterized as among the toughest environmental contaminants. So yeah. So majorly it's this, that or the oil countries will not let this happen. एक बार ऐसे ही कट कर लेते हैं जो कि okay. Bomb scare, students evacuated from 138 schools in Noida. You know that. Order on prior sanction for increase in school fee stayed. The High Court has stayed an order of the Directorate of Education directing private unaided schools which have been allotted land by the government to seek its sanction before increasing the fees. This is So the Delhi High Court on Wednesday issued notice to the centre on a petition claiming discrepancies between the figures reported by the National Crime Record Bureau and those provided by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs over seizure of heroin between. There is discrepancy. Entire paper is filled with political news. HP is a token app case. कैसे फूल बनाते हैं ना. Invest in HP is a token app and astronomical returns. Very good returns they'll find because their company will invest that in Bitcoin mining. Transport out of India often converted into cryptocurrency, moved through Hawala transactions, it said. Oh my god. $176 crores worth. बहुत बड़ा बिजनेस है. With mercury levels rising in Karnataka and many places witnessing extreme heat, tourists were flocking in the Vibhuti Falls on Wednesday. Vibhuti Falls is located in the Western Ghats in Uttara Kannada district. So, Bangalore-based Indian Institute of Astrophysics has filmed the passing of the moon in front of Antares, a bright red star. ISRO finds proof of enhanced possibility of water ice in polar crater of the moon. This picture taken by Chandrayaan-1 terrain mapping camera shows craters in the moon's polar region. So क्या है मिला हमें वाटर आइस. So, analyzing labor on a warming planet. So, the ILO ILO is the International Labour Organization has identified 6 key impacts of climate change. They are excessive heat, solar ultraviolet rays, extreme weather events, workplace air pollution, vector-borne diseases and agrochemicals. When it comes to dealing with occupational heat, the Factories Act broadly defines ventilation and temperature and leaves it to the states to decide optimal standards based on specific industries. However, these regulations were framed more than 5 decades back. Amendments are also required to address the handling of effluents and byproducts disposal, so they could significantly impact human health based on temperature. There are gig workers. Agriculture is affected. Entire work is in heat. MSME sector is affected. Construction workers are affected. Physical injuries, air pollution, asthma diseases. What are the laws which address the workplace safety? Factories Act, Worker Compensation Act, Building and Other Construction at Plantation, Mines, Migrant Workers. Ventilation and temperature. Yes, there should be proper ventilation and temperature. Adequate temperature should be maintained at the workplace. Yes. So, in order to provide good, relief from the heat, air conditioning is important, and the rules that were framed regarding this were framed at the time when air conditioning was not that much prevalent. So there is no mentions about air conditioning or other cooling methods like coolers, etc. So yeah. The memories of partition in the contemporary imagination. So we are about to complete. The Partition Museum at the Dara Shikoh Library, Ambedkar University in New Delhi. So historians and the writers of the subcontinent continues to discover different aspects of the Indian national movement from independence and partition, looking beyond stereotypes and opening new fronts in the reading and understanding of history. British historian Eric Hobsbawm. History is nationalism. What a poppy is. History is to nationalism what a poppy is to heroin addict. What's a poppy? History is not something that can be comprehended just as a form of knowledge about the world we live in. It's often effectively used for political purpose and also at times invented should this be necessary for the purpose. This past is so constructed as to sustain a particular political ideology for which it is foundational. The colonial obsession towards understanding India and its past was instrumental in strengthening their political control over India. James Mill wrote The History of British India and maintained that this history was essentially that of two nations, the Hindu and the Muslim, quite distinctly separate and constantly in conflict. It is significant to understand that this reading of history substantially strengthened colonial rule over India. Its single and universally applied explanation of religion as the prime cause of every major historical activity is often discarded by professional historians. Like, the religion is the basis for all the fights that are happening. major historical activity, like on the basis of religion only the country was divided. A lot of fights that go on the basis of religion, so it's history, not that important. Manipur groups to mark 1 year of ethnic conflict. Kuki-Zo organization calls for shutdown in Churachandrapur on May 3rd, marking the day as one of the remembrance for their fallen. Meeti Group appeal to track down 35 of their missing people. Centre states not to procure CCTVs from dubious sellers. The Union Home Ministry has asked all states and government departments to avoid procuring CCTVs, it's a light solution, and the hardware from suppliers who have a history of security and data breaches. April's gross GST taking power past 2.1 lakh crore. Revant denies role in doctored video. NYPD storms Columbia University again. April temperature in East and South India posted record high heat waves to prevail. It's mostly in the southern and the eastern region that it's too hot. Plea in Supreme Court for probe panel for vaccine risk factor. The controversy over the safety aspects of the Covishield vaccine reached the Supreme Court with a petition filed by Advocate Vishal Tiwari seeking the constitution of an expert medical panel to study the risk factor. What are the risks associated with Covishield? The plea pointed out that AstraZeneca, the company which developed the vaccine, has said in a UK court that its vaccine against COVID-19, which was made under license at the Serum Institute of India's Covishield, could cause low platelet counts and formation of blood clots in rare cases. We have seen this in yesterday's news about the AstraZeneca, that it's this vaccine can result into blood clots. What's a liquid? Liquid is party. Hmm. Model code of conduct came. You can't like publicize. So the EC on Wednesday brought a detailed protocol for the handling and storage of symbol loading in compliance with Supreme. The revised protocol are applicable in all cases of completion of the symbol loading process. The top court had also paved the way for verification of microcontrollers embedded in the EVMs. We're left with business and world. Coal India production rose 7%. Okay, SEBI makes nomination optional for joint MF account. Not important. FPI withdrew 8700 crore from Indian equities in April. Yes, a lot of money has been taken back by the foreign portfolio investors. Foreign investors turned net sellers in April, selling Indian equities worth 8700 crores on concerns over a tweak in India's tax treaty with Mauritius and amid a sustained rise in US bond yield. There are two reasons why they have taken out. US bond yields have increased and India's tax treaty with Mauritius. Godrej firms to continue working on Vikhroli land development post split. India, one of the key geographies affected by phishing attacks. Phishing attacks means internet में होते हैं, where employees often click on malicious link or attachments that appear to be legitimate sources, often leading to severe financial losses. This is what phishing attack is. You click on something and that leads to some website taking away your money, which appears to be legitimate, but they lead to financial losses. Click on malicious links or attachments. Phishing attacks. Adani Energy Solution net profit falls. Okay. April petrol sales rises, diesel ships. US Fed holds interest rates citing uncertain economic outlook. US Fed holds interest rates. The economic outlook is uncertain. The FOMC remains highly attentive to inflation risks. इसका मतलब क्या है? The US Federal Reserve held interest rates steady for a sixth straight meeting on Wednesday, keeping the level at a 23-year high. This is very complicated. Maruti Suzuki total sales rose 5%. DGCA deregisters all 54 Go First aircraft. The loss-making airline aircraft lessors had moved the Delhi High Court in the wake of the NCLT admitting Go First plea to seek voluntary insolvency in May last year, and the resultant moratorium on adverse actions by the carrier's creditor HC last week gave regulator 5 days to act. So there are certain terms here. The the Go First aircraft was making losses, so NCLT had asked the aircraft to seek voluntary insolvency, like close down the company, shut down the company. On your own you shut down the company. Moratorium is where is the process when the insolvency has started and no creditor can come in to sell the assets of the other. Moratorium is the period of you can't impose anything on the debtor. Let me check. Moratorium is a temporary suspension of an activity or law until future consideration warrants lifting the suspension, such as if and when the issues that led to moratorium have been resolved. A moratorium may be imposed by government regulator or business. That important. So now this much is left of the world. China's third aircraft carrier, Fujian, conducts first sea trial. US newspaper sue OpenAI, Microsoft over AI chatbots. 8 US newspapers sued OpenAI and Microsoft in a New York federal court for violating their copyrights to train the technology behind ChatGPT. US novelist. US expects accountability from India and Panum case. The US expects accountability and is raising concerns over the Panum case with New Delhi regularly. The State Department said, responding for the first time to the latest details reported by the Washington Post this week. The report named an Indian intelligence official for allegedly ordering the assassination of a Khalistani activist. We continue to expect accountability from the Government of India based on the results of the Indian Inquiry Committee's work, and we are regularly working with them. Australia has laws to deal with foreign interference. Not important. In Israel, Blinken asked Hamas to accept very strong deal. All this Hamas and all should be run from the monthly compilation, because the story is very big. No evidence that Cypher was in Imran's custody, Pakistani court. In a fresh twist in the Cypher case, the Islamabad High Court observed that the Federal Investigation Agency has nothing to prove that jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan retained the confidential diplomatic cable and it went missing from his possession. In first, UK sends asylum seeker to let me see. Rwanda. Okay, so we are done with the newspaper. We'll not be reading Indian Express. I think 2 newspapers should be preferred only when you're going ahead for the interview. Normally, you should just go ahead with reading single newspaper, and I'm going ahead with the Hindu. So that's it. Today we completed in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Hopefully, we'll be reducing the time to 1 hour, and that will be our target. And I would say that YouTube has really brought about regularity in my newspaper reading. And if you are also reading this newspaper with me, I would just want to say thank you and all the best for the day.